Maya's Dream and the White Elephant. Buddha story. According to the tradition, before Prince Siddhartha was born, Queen Maya had a special dream. In that dream, a white elephant appeared. People later understood the dream as a sign that a great child would be born. If the child remained in worldly life, he would become a great wheel-turning king. If he left home to seek truth, he would become an awakened one. It was a quiet night in Kapilavastu. The palace lamps flickered softly, and moonlight rested near the window. That night, Queen Maya fell asleep with a calm and peaceful heart. In her dream, a white light slowly came from far away. Inside that light was a white elephant. The elephant did not come with fear or force. It came gently and gracefully, as if walking on clouds. According to the tradition, the white elephant entered Queen Maya's right side. This scene has been remembered as a symbol of a sacred life coming into the world. Before the child had a name or a face, he first came to his mother as a light within a dream. When Queen Maya woke, the dream had faded, but a quiet joy remained in her heart. When the dream was told to wise interpreters, they said it was the sign of a great child to come. Queen Maya's dream was not only a sign of a great birth, it was also a gentle reminder that a beloved life cannot be held by our wishes alone. A child does not live only inside the hopes of the parents. Each life must one day find its own path. Perhaps you, too, are waiting for a new beginning. Great change does not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it comes first as a small light in the heart. Even if you cannot hold the result yet, it is okay. If a quiet light has entered your heart, a new path may already be beginning. Buddha's birthday. The first lotus in Lumbini. One quiet morning, soft light rested on the trees of Lumbini Grove. According to the tradition, Queen Maya was traveling to her family home. When she came to this peaceful garden, she was tired from the long road, but her heart was filled with a quiet joy. A child was soon to be born. Queen Maya walked beneath the sal trees and gently held a low branch. There, it is said, the baby Buddha was born. The grove did not become loud. It became even more still, as if the earth itself was welcoming him. In the tradition, the baby Buddha took 7 steps, and with each step, a lotus flower bloomed. This scene has been remembered as a symbol of how precious one life can be. A small child had come into the world, and a light had quietly begun. Later, that child grew into Prince Siddhartha. He saw aging, sickness, and death. He looked deeply into human suffering. And at last, he awakened and became the Buddha. Buddha's birthday is not only about a light from long ago. It is also about the small light that can return to a tired heart. Even after heavy days, the heart can soften again. Tonight, may one quiet lotus bloom inside you. Asita's prophecy. Buddha story. According to the tradition, after Prince Siddhartha was born, an old sage named Asita came to the palace. When he saw the child, he said that if the boy remained in worldly life, he would become a great wheel-turning king. But if he left home to seek truth, he would become an awakened one. Asita was filled with joy, yet he began to cry, because he knew he was too old to hear the teaching this child would one day give. The palace of Kapilavastu was filled with quiet happiness. After the birth of the child, people spoke of blessed signs, and the king's heart was full of hope. Then Asita came down from the mountains, walking slowly with an old body, but a clear and steady heart. The king welcomed him with respect, and the newborn prince was gently placed before him. Asita looked at the child for a long time. First, wonder appeared on his face, and then a deep joy slowly spread through him. He said, "This child is not an ordinary child. If he remains in the world, he will become a great and righteous king. But if he leaves home to seek truth, he will become a rare awakened one." The king was glad, but his heart also trembled. A great destiny was a blessing, yet it might lead the child beyond the palace, and beyond his father's hopes. Then Asita began to weep quietly as he looked at the baby. The king grew anxious and asked, "Holy One, is there something unfortunate for this child?" Asita shook his head and answered, "No, I do not weep because of the child. This child will one day awaken and teach the Dhamma. I weep because I am too old, and when that teaching is given, I will no longer be in this world to hear it." Asita's tears were not only tears of sadness. They were the tears of an old man who recognized something precious. While knowing he could not stay to receive it fully, he bowed before the child who could not yet speak, honoring the awakening that would one day come. Perhaps you, too, have felt sorrow, because you may not see the end of something good. But even when we cannot see everything grow, the heart that recognizes and blesses a small light is never wasted. The light you quietly honor today may one day guide someone else's path. Young Siddhartha's first meditation. Buddha story. According to the tradition, when Prince Siddhartha was still a child, he once went to a plowing festival. While people gathered to pray for a good harvest, The young prince quietly sat alone beneath the shade of a tree. There, he watched the soil being opened by the plow, and he saw the small living beings that appeared from the earth. The field outside Kapilavastu was filled with the joy of the festival. White oxen walked forward with decorated yokes, and people moved busily with hope for the coming harvest. But young Siddhartha noticed the tiny creatures, moving in the broken soil. Birds came down toward the newly exposed life, while the small beings struggled to find a place to hide. What looked like the beginning of abundance for people could also be a moment of fear for smaller lives. That sight left a quiet question in the young prince's heart. Siddhartha went to the shade of a tree and sat down, while the wind moved softly through the leaves, and the sounds of the festival faded into the distance. He remembered the happy faces of the people, and he also remembered the eyes of the oxen carrying the heavy yoke. The world did not have only one face. There was joy, but there was also labor. There was comfort, but sometimes another being's pain was hidden beneath it. According to the tradition, a deep stillness came to the young prince's heart at that moment. It was not the joy of gaining something. It was a clear and gentle peace that came when he was not holding on to anything. Later, when Siddhartha's body became weak from extreme austerity, it is said that he remembered this quiet peace beneath the rose apple tree. That memory helped him see that the path was not found in harming the body, and not found in chasing pleasure. A calm and clear heart could become the beginning of the way. Perhaps you, too, have paused before something that others simply passed by. You may have felt the pain of a small life, or the quiet burden behind someone's ordinary day. You do not have to call that heart too sensitive. A heart that feels deeply can be tired, but it can also lead us toward a softer and more truthful path. Siddhartha's growth and the palace walls. Buddha story. According to the tradition, as Prince Siddhartha was growing up, his father tried to keep him far away from the sorrows of the world. After hearing Asita's prophecy, the king feared that the boy might one day leave the palace and become a seeker of truth. So he arranged a life of comfort and beauty, hoping Siddhartha would never see aging, sickness, or death. Inside the palace, Siddhartha grew up surrounded by fine clothes, gentle music, flowers, gardens, and every kind of care. People tried to hide painful things from him, and they were careful not to let him see tired faces, sickness, or grief. The king's heart was not cold. It was the heart of a father who loved his son, and did not want to lose him. But comfort does not always put the deepest questions to sleep. Siddhartha saw flowers bloom and later fade. He noticed that even people who smiled could turn away and quietly sigh. The palace tried to hide sorrow, but the small signs of change could not be hidden forever. The king prepared more beauty, more music, and more pleasure, hoping to keep Siddhartha's heart inside the safe walls of the palace. But the heart cannot be tied down like an object. Just as high walls cannot stop every wind, the palace could not completely silence the quiet questions growing inside the young prince. This story gently reminds us that love can sometimes build high walls. We may try to protect someone from pain, or even hide hard truths from ourselves, because we do not want the heart to be hurt. That love is not a bad thing. But sometimes true love is not hiding every sorrow. Sometimes it is staying close while the truth is slowly faced. Even behind walls built with love, the heart continues to grow. And beyond those walls, life is already opening its quiet path. Yasodhara and Siddhartha's marriage. Buddha story. According to the tradition, after Prince Siddhartha grew into a young man, he married Yasodhara and began family life inside the palace. King Suddhodana remembered the prophecy of the sage Asita, and he hoped that marriage and palace comfort would keep Siddhartha close to worldly life. But even with beauty, music, and a loving person beside him, the deep question in Siddhartha's heart did not disappear. The palace of Kapilavastu was filled with flowers, incense, and gentle music on the day of their marriage. People blessed the young couple and hoped their life would be peaceful. Yasodhara was not simply someone beside Siddhartha. She was the one who saw his quiet eyes closely, and she noticed the silence that stayed in him, even when others were smiling. Siddhartha and Yasodhara walked together in the gardens, and sometimes they sat near the lotus pond without many words. One evening, Siddhartha watched flower petals falling in the wind. For a long time, Yasodhara asked softly, "Prince, what are you thinking about?" Siddhartha answered, "I was thinking that even beautiful things do not stay for long." His words were sad, but they were not cold. They were not the words of someone who hated life. They were the words of someone who was beginning to look more deeply at life. Yasodhara did not try to make his heart lighter by force. She simply stayed beside him and shared the quiet that remained. The peace of the palace was not evil. Yasodhara's love was not a shadow blocking Siddhartha's path, but comfort and love could not Erase the question of aging, sickness, and parting. Siddhartha did not hate what he had. He was slowly seeing that what he had could not free all beings from suffering. This is how the story of Siddhartha and Yasodhara's marriage quietly comes to a close. Perhaps you, too, have looked fine on the outside, while a deep question remained in your heart. You do not have to push that question away as an ungrateful thought. Sometimes a deep question comes not because we hate our life, but because we want to love life more truthfully. May the quiet question within you one day lead to a wider and gentler peace. The 4 Sights Buddha Story Shorts. According to the tradition, Prince Siddhartha once left the palace and saw 4 sights: an old person, a sick person, a dead person, and a peaceful renunciant. These 4 sights left a deep question in his heart. Inside the palace of Kapilavastu, Siddhartha lived with every comfort. There was fine food, soft clothing, music, flowers, and laughter around him. But one day, he wondered what life was like beyond the palace walls. So he went outside the city gate with his charioteer, Channa. On the road, Siddhartha saw an old man. His back was bent, his hair was white, and he leaned on a staff as he walked. Siddhartha asked, "Channa, why is that man's body bent like that?" Channa answered, "Prince, that man is old. All who are born cannot avoid aging." A few days later, Siddhartha saw a sick man. His body trembled, his face was pale, and the people beside him looked worried. Channa said, "Anyone with a body can become sick." The 3rd time, Siddhartha saw a dead person. People were crying as they carried the body with flowers and cloth. Channa spoke quietly, "All who are born cannot avoid death." Siddhartha's heart was deeply shaken. Youth, health, and the people we love cannot be held forever. Then one day, Siddhartha saw a calm renunciant. He owned very little, but his face was strangely peaceful. Channa said, "He is one who seeks the way beyond suffering." That day, a small flame was lit in Siddhartha's heart. Aging, sickness, and death were real. But collapsing before them was not the only path. There were also those who looked at life clearly and searched for freedom. Perhaps you, too, have stood before aging, sickness, or parting. You do not have to pretend it does not hurt. You do not have to blame yourself for being afraid. Only those who have seen the heavy side of life begin to search for a deeper peace. The birth of Rahula and Siddhartha's shaken heart Buddha story. According to the tradition, near the time when Prince Siddhartha was moving closer to leaving the palace, Yasodhara gave birth to a son. The palace was filled with joy, and King Suddhodana was deeply happy that an heir had been born. But in the middle of that joy, Siddhartha's heart stood before an even deeper question. He had already seen an old man, a sick person, a dead body, and a calm renunciant walking on the road. After seeing these 4 sights, one question stayed in his heart. Why must one who is born grow old? Why must the body become sick? Why must those who meet one day separate? Then the news came. A son had been born. The small cry of the child filled the palace with joy, and many people may have thought Siddhartha would now stay. But Siddhartha's heart trembled even more deeply. According to the tradition, he quietly said words with this meaning. A bond has been born. At first, these words may sound cold, but they do not mean that Siddhartha did not love his son. He was shaken because his love had become deeper. When we love someone, their smile becomes our joy, and their pain becomes our pain. As Siddhartha thought of newborn Rahula, he saw the beauty of life more clearly, but he also saw that even this beloved child could not escape aging, sickness, separation, and death. He may have asked himself quietly, what is the greatest gift I can give my child? Is it a kingdom, or is it a path beyond suffering? Rahula's birth seemed like the final bond, holding Siddhartha to palace life. But later, Rahula would become known as the son of the Buddha, and a disciple on the path. So this story is not only about attachment, it is also about how love can become wider compassion. This is how the story of Rahula's birth quietly comes to a close. May the trembling places in your heart slowly become a doorway to wisdom, compassion, and peace. Siddhartha's Great Departure Buddha Story. According to the tradition, after Prince Siddhartha saw aging, sickness, death, and a peaceful renunciant, he felt that palace comfort alone could not answer the deep question in his heart. Though he had his wife, Yasodhara, and his newborn son, Rahula, he wished to find a way beyond the suffering shared by all living beings. Deep at night in Kapilavastu, the palace lamps flickered softly. The music had stopped, the flowers were quiet, and Prince Siddhartha sat awake for a long time. In his heart, the 4 sights remained: the bent back of an old man, the pale face of a sick man, the still body of a dead man, and the calm face of a renunciant who owned almost nothing. Siddhartha thought quietly, I cannot avoid aging. I cannot avoid sickness. I cannot avoid death. Then is holding on to comfort truly the answer? That night, it is said that Siddhartha came near the room where Yasodhara and little Rahula were resting. If he reached out, he could have touched his child's face one more time, but he stopped. He did not turn away because he lacked love. He stood there with a painful heart, because he wished to learn a greater love. Then Siddhartha called his charioteer, Channa. Channa, I must go and search for the answer. I want to know whether there is a path beyond aging, sickness, and death. According to the tradition, he rode out into the deep night on his horse, Kanthaka. The palace lights slowly faded behind him. Before him, an unknown road opened. Siddhartha was not free from fear. But beneath the fear, there was a quiet resolve. He was not leaving because he hated what he had. He was leaving because his heart longed for something more true. Perhaps you, too, have felt your heart tremble. Even in a comfortable place. You do not have to push that feeling away as foolish. Sometimes the heart moves not because it rejects what it has, but because it is searching for a deeper truth. Letting go of one old fear can also be a small going forth. Channa and Kanthaka's farewell. Buddha story. According to the tradition, when Prince Siddhartha left the palace, in the deep night, his charioteer Channa and his beloved horse Kanthaka went with him. The gates of sleeping Kapilavasta opened quietly, and the three of them moved into the darkness, leaving the life of the palace behind. Siddhartha was not leaving because he hated anyone. The hope of King Suddhodana, the quiet love of Yasodhara, and the small breath of newborn Rahula were all still in his heart. But after seeing an old man, a sick person, a dead body, and a calm renunciant, he could no longer look at palace life in the same way. Why must one who is born grow old? Why must the body become sick? Why must those who meet one day separate? These questions followed him through the night, becoming clearer as the palace grew farther away. At last, they reached a lonely place, where the life of a prince and the life of a seeker began to separate. Siddhartha took off his jewels and royal clothing, then told Channa to return to the palace with them. Channa's heart may have felt as if it were breaking, because he had to leave his prince alone on an unknown road. Kanthaka also stood quietly, as if he understood the sadness of the farewell. A horse cannot speak with words, but the heart of a faithful companion can sometimes be felt in silence. On that night, Kanthaka seemed like the final companion, carrying Siddhartha's former life. After Channa and Kanthaka returned, Siddhartha stood alone. The palace, the royal name, and the familiar protection were now behind him. Before him was the path of seeking, with no comfort, no praise, and no clear promise. This is how the story of Channa and Kanthaka's farewell quietly comes to a close. Leaving is not always born from a cold heart. Sometimes, leaving is a quiet decision, made for the sake of a deeper love. May the trembling in your own heart slowly guide you toward a path that is honest, gentle, and true.